Golden Blooded back with another video just for you. And if you're a college football or a college basketball fan, you need to hit the like and subscribe button because that's all we do here every single day. I am here to get you through the off season right up until the college football season gets here. Go check out our Patreon page when you get a chance. A lot of time and effort going into that. We also have a great website that was designed by Joey. We have 8 great writers led by our head writer, Michael Walker. And go get you some Golden Blooded gear from the merchandise store. I myself have ordered 2 of our Golden Blooded t-shirts, the gold and the blue, so I look forward to that. And today we're going to talk about the future of college football, specifically how Dabo Sweeney thinks it will go. I actually agree with Dabo Sweeney. I think there's a huge disconnect in college football right now. We're trying to have rules for everybody on the same level, and the fact of the matter is, not everybody is on the same level. The group of 5 teams are not on the same level as the Power 5 teams. But there's some Power 5 teams that are on a different level of other Power 5 teams. And we see all the cracks and all the flaws exposed whenever the transfer portal and the NIL really showed how powerful of an influence that they're having on college football. And of course, playoff expansion is going to play a factor into it as well. So Dabo Sweeney thinks that in the future, about 40 or 50 teams will break off, create their own conference league, whatever you want to call it, division, have their own commissioner, have their own set of rules, and then the mid-levels will have their own conference level, division, whatever you want to call it, and the FCS will still exist. And maybe it could be a situation where you could earn your way into the next level, kind of like whenever an FCS gets called up into a group of 5, or a group of 5 team gets called up to the Power 5. So it's not, if you miss the first cut, you're out forever. You could eventually earn your way into the next cut. So I went with the 50-team model. And look, this is going to be very opinionated. And a lot of people are going to disagree with who I have where, who I left out, and who I have in. So this is my list of the 50 teams that would make the cut if that were to happen. And to be quite honest with you, I agree with Dabo Sweeney. I think it will happen. The question is, will it happen sooner or later? So here are the 50 teams that I think do make the cut. And I kind of split it up into 10s. So even within the 50 teams themselves, there's 5 tiers. You have the first tier, second tier, third tier, fourth tier, and then the 5th tier that barely made it. And I'll also give you the teams that barely missed the cut but could earn their way in the future. The first tier starts off with Alabama. No brainer here. They are the cream of the crop. But right along with Alabama, I also have Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, unfortunately, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, and Oregon. If you notice who dominates the top 10, that's going to be the SEC. Why? Because the SEC makes the most money. Those teams make the most money. They have the most success, especially in college football. And that's what will determine this the most. And that's why the SEC is dominating my top 10 when it comes to this separate group. You have to look at brand. You have to look at revenue produced. And you have to look at success, mainly in college football, but also in college basketball as well. Those are the 2 biggest revenue makers in college sports today. So those are my first 10 in. Next 10 in, USC, Notre Dame, Clemson. I think Clemson would not have been in the top 20 about 10, 15 years ago. They'd probably been in the top 30, top 40, but definitely not top 20. Now they could be close to top 10. Then there's Miami, the Hurricanes. I know they've been down in football, but they have a great brand. Florida State, same situation. LSU, Texas A&M, Penn State, Nebraska, and Arkansas. So the SEC doesn't dominate quite as much in my second 10 as they did in my first 10. Starts to even out after this. Definitely that first 10 dominated by the SEC. Next 10, Ole Miss, UCLA. I think UCLA's brand is a little bit more powerful than people realize. They are in the LA area. They are on hard times when it comes to football, but Chip Kelly has them on the rebound. Their basketball's been doing great. So yeah, I definitely have them in the top 30. Right behind them, Michigan State. North Carolina. North Carolina could actually crack the top 20 just because of their basketball. And their football's been doing well. I also have Virginia Tech. I know, I hate Virginia Tech, but I think Virginia Tech has a strong enough brand to be in the top 30. Then there's Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Washington, and Utah. So we are starting to see a little bit more Pac-12 teams once we get outside the top 20. I do think the Pac-12 does have some strong brands, just not as strong as the SEC and the Big Ten. All right, next 10. Missouri, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Purdue, Kentucky, Louisville, NC State, Baylor, I hate saying this, Pitt, but I think Pitt has a pretty good brand. I think they could make some money. And Arizona State. Arizona State was right on the line. That one's a little bit more debatable than what I realized when I wrote it down. But yeah, these are your kind of mid to lower tier of the SEC and Big Ten. Still really good brands, but they're not your Alabamas. They're not your Oregons. They're not your Oklahomas, Ohio States, Georgias. They're not the top tier, but strong brands, strong enough to be in the top 40. And then finally, the last 10. These are the last 10 teams that I have barely making it into the top 50 in this new league. This is where the debate could really heat up, because maybe some of the teams that I left out you disagree with and they should be in, and some of the teams that I barely have in I should have left out. I'm really looking forward to your comments on this one, but these are the last 10. This is where the biggest arguments will arise. It starts off with West Virginia. Yeah, I barely have West Virginia in. I do think they have a pretty good brand. I think they would have the potential of cracking the top 40, but we have got to figure out this NIL thing if we want to feel good about ourselves being in a league like this. So yes, I have West Virginia barely in, but West Virginia needs a lot of work when it comes to that NIL. Right behind them, Kansas. Really the only reason that I have Kansas barely getting in is their basketball. They can make a crap ton of money in basketball, and their football has potential. We've seen in the past that Kansas can be good in football. They just need to find the right coach. And Kansas is investing into their football facilities. Believe it or not, they are. So they do have potential on the football side. Right behind them, Virginia, Arizona, Kansas State, Maryland, Iowa State, Minnesota, BYU, and then Colorado. These are kind of the bottom level, but still pretty good brands in the Power 5 conference. Barely making the cut, but they still need some work to feel really good about themselves to make it into a league like this. You can also support Golden Blued through PayPal, and right now every single donation goes towards getting all of us Golden Blued a P.O. box. That way you can send a mini helmet of your favorite team so I can display in my background forever. Let's talk about the teams that barely missed the cut. For the ACC, I have Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech, and then the big one that people are going to argue about, Duke. Well, Golden Blue, you put Kansas in there, and they're basically a basketball school. Why didn't you put Duke in there? I don't think Duke really has as much hope as Kansas does in football. That was kind of the tiebreaker right there. But Duke could earn their way in if they invested into their football program and built it up, figured out a way to make some money off the NIL. From the Big 12, the two teams that I have missing, TCU and Texas Tech. And I'm talking about the current Big 12, not the future Big 12. So just those two teams, TCU, Texas Tech. I think those two teams really need to work hard on their brand and name recognition. They were close, but they barely missed the cut. Out of the Big 10, this one might surprise you. Well, not the first one, Rutgers. Rutgers missed the cut. Indiana, I know they've had a great basketball tradition, but right now Indiana is just, they're not relevant at all. So they barely missed the cut. Illinois, they've been on and off in basketball. Football, horrific, so they barely missed the cut. And then there's Northwestern. They'll have a great year, and then like 6 or 7 years of horribleness in both basketball and football. So Northwestern missed the cut by a significant margin. Now, for the Pac-12, I have Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford missing the cut. Yeah, basically the only reason these are Power 5 teams are because they're in the Pac-12. If this new league started, I don't think that they would be included. For the SEC, only one team missed it, and it was Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt needs to do something in their basketball and football programs. They have a great baseball program, one of the best in the nation. But basketball and football are lacking, and that's why I had Vanderbilt missing the cut. And finally, the group of 5 teams that were close but barely missed the cut. And if you were paying attention, the only group of 5 team that made the cut was BYU. But there were a few that were close, and they were Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, UAB. UAB has a stronger brand than you realize. Boise State and Appalachian State. Well, Appalachian State a little farther down, but close enough to be mentioned. So there you go. Those are the 50 teams that I think right now would make the cut. Now, there's going to be a lot of argument on who I have where, who I had above who, and who missed the cut. So y'all let me know in the comment section where you agree and where you disagree. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.